What Hendrick Motorsports announced 8 days ago was already big enough on its own. But what has surfaced in the days since, inside a completely different race shop, may have created an entirely different storyline heading into Daytona. Nobody was fired. Nobody quit. No driver lost a ride. Trackhouse Racing will put the same 3 cars on the grid Saturday night that it put on the grid at the Daytona 500 in February, and it will do it again in 2027. Nothing on the entry list changed. And yet the people who follow this sport closely spent last week talking about Trackhouse the way you talk about an organization that just lost something it cannot replace. Here is the driver at the center of it. 20 years old. From Charlotte, North Carolina. 10 wins last season in NASCAR's second-tier series. 8 poles. A regular season championship. Signed to a development contract at 17 by an owner who saw it before almost anybody else did. And he came into the final 2 races of this regular season 34th in the Cup Series point standings, with exactly 1 top 10 finish to his name. That driver is Connor Zilisch, and in 2028, he will drive the number 48 Chevrolet for Hendrick Motorsports. Not this season, not next season, 2028, which leaves Justin Marks with roughly 15 months and 1 more full campaign, alongside a driver who has already signed somewhere else. And it leaves Shane van Gisbergen, the one man at Trackhouse who stayed, who signed his extension a year ago and said publicly he could see himself there for years, sitting 16th in points, 31 above the cut line, 4 days out from a Daytona race that decides whether he is in the chase at all. 4 days, then 15 months. So here is what I keep coming back to. Everybody spent last week asking what Trackhouse lost. Almost nobody asked the harder question. What exactly did Trackhouse agree to? If you follow contract season the way I do, subscribe to Freedom Line News. This channel is still small, still building, and the people who get here early are the ones already sitting inside these conversations. That's the whole pitch. Start with the announcement itself, because the details do the work. Monday, August 17th. Hendrick Motorsports confirms a multi-year agreement with Zilisch beginning in 2028 in the number 48 Ally Chevrolet. The car Alex Bowman has driven since 2021. The car Jimmy Johnson and Chad Knaus turned into 7 championships. That seat only came open because of a decision Bowman made a month ago. On July 23rd, Hendrick announced Bowman had signed a 1-year extension and that 2027 would be his final season of full-time competition. 10 years as a Hendrick full-timer, closed out on his own terms after years of health issues that cost him time in the car. So the timing wasn't luck, exactly. It was 2 clocks lining up. Rick Hendrick called Zilisch a truly gifted young racer, then said the thing owners only say when they mean it. When someone with that ability becomes available, you do everything you can to get them in the building. Ally stays on the car. Jeff Gordon, now the team's vice chairman, sat beside Hendrick at the NASCAR production facility on Tuesday and framed it as something that came together the way it was meant to. 20 years old, born the year Johnson won that team its first title, and he is already talking like somebody who has read the room. Kyle Larson, who has worked around him this season through Chevrolet's key partnership program, said the rough rookie year doesn't mean anything to him. And the last fortnight has quietly backed that up. 11th at Iowa on August 9th from an 8th place start, his best oval result yet, then 11th on the grid at Richmond. The other half of this is Shane van Gisbergen, and the shape of his season makes the whole thing stranger. Van Gisbergen signed his multi-year extension in August of last year. It runs through at least 2027. In June, speaking to Race Service, he said he could see himself at Trackhouse for another 2, 3, 4 more years. He moved to the number 97 this season, his father's number, the number he carried through supercars, and then he won with it at Watkins Glen in May, running down Ty Gibbs from 29 seconds back in 18 laps. That was Trackhouse's first win of 2026, then Sonoma in June, leading 74 of 110 laps and holding off Chase Briscoe. 8 career Cup wins now, every one of them on a road or street course. That ties Tony Stewart for second all-time on Cup road courses and leaves him 1 behind Jeff Gordon. He finished 20th 1 lap down. His read afterward was blunt. Being that quick on wets and falling off that hard told him the car was missing grip on the slicks. That is not a road racer problem. That is a speed problem. And he has been saying since Sonoma that he needs the ovals to come to him, because there are no road courses left on this schedule. 16th in points, 31 clear of Ryan Preece with one race left, and only 6 points clear in owner points. At New Hampshire on Sunday, he led 30 laps and built a 5.87-second gap over William Byron on wet weather tires, then watched it disappear the moment the track dried and the field switched to slicks. Ross Chastain's afternoon was worse. A mechanical failure put the number one last, 36th, and ended his chase hopes with it, closing out the worst season he has had since joining the organization in 2022. So the driver who stayed is barely holding a postseason spot. The driver who is leaving is 34th. The flagship car is already out, and this is where the story turns. Because the version of this everyone ran with last week was that Hendrick took Connor Zilisch. A super team reached down and pulled the best young asset out of a smaller organization, the way super teams do. That is not what happened. Gordon laid the sequence out on Tuesday. When Bowman told them 2027 would be his last full-time year, that put the next thing in motion. And around that same time, Gordon said they heard Zilisch was going to be out talking to teams about 2028 and beyond. So the first call Hendrick made was not to Zilisch, not to an agent, not a quiet word in a garage stall on a Saturday. The first call went to Justin Marks for the blessing to sit down with Marks's own driver and talk about taking him. "Read that again," Trackhouse was asked. Trackhouse said yes. That one fact reframes everything in front of it. This was not a raid. It was not a smaller team getting out-muscled in the dark. This was an owner who, earlier this month, had said out loud that 2028 was a little too far away to be spending much bandwidth on right now. Marks has been honest about the cost. He told SiriusXM NASCAR Radio, "The early announcement is problematic in some ways for his team, but in the wider context, not totally unexpected." Then the sentence that explains the entire decision. When a young driver gets a call from Rick Hendrick, that is not a moment where anybody says, "No thanks." Which is true. It is also an admission, because if the calculation is that you cannot hold a driver like that against a call from Hendrick, then the calculation has to be that you can replace him. Marks called it bittersweet, and said the mandate is to accomplish big things with Zilisch while they still have him, then hand the 88 to somebody new in 2028. And that is where the real exposure sits. It has almost nothing to do with the number 88. Ross Chastain's contract expires at the end of 2027. Shane van Gisbergen's contract expires at the end of 2027, the same date Zilisch's does. Trackhouse is not replacing one driver in 2028. On paper, it is exposed on all three at once. Marks is not pretending otherwise. That is what turned a driver signing into a structural question. Adam Stern of Sports Business Journal reported the team might listen to offers on its charters. A person familiar with Trackhouse's thinking denied any interest in downsizing. He has said he knows what the board looks like, he knows when contracts come up at the end of 27, he knows who is positioned to be a free agent, and he suspects that for other people the process has already started. Marks has said the three-car operation stays, that it matters to his sponsors, to Chevrolet, and to the business he is building around all of it. Dale Earnhardt Jr. does not agree. On the Dale Jr. download, he laid the alternative out plainly. Dial it back to two teams. Instead of needing something in the neighborhood of $200 million, you need 125, and that number is easier to find. Lease the third charter rather than sell it, because charter values keep climbing. Lock your drivers down. Give yourself a runway. The third full-time entry only arrived in 2025, with Van Gisbergen. This is a young organization that scaled fast, and 2026 is the first season the scaling has cost it something. And the number that should worry Trackhouse most isn't a dollar figure. For Shane van Gisbergen, it's about 31 points and a racetrack that has never liked him. 4 Cup starts at Daytona, a best finish of 16th, 30th in February. For Ryan Preece, it's about the opposite problem. 9th at New Hampshire, 10 stage points, 31 to find at a place that has flipped his car twice. His words this week, he's on offense, not defense. It's the qualifying sheet. Van Gisbergen has spent this year learning what a poor starting spot costs on an oval. And that is exactly the kind of problem a larger organization solves in one phone call. So here is where everyone actually stands, 4 days out. For Connor Zilisch, it's about the next 15 months. He told SiriusXM he wants to leave Trackhouse better than he found it, so the 88 is a seat somebody good still wants. For Ross Chastain, it's about proving 2026 was the anomaly and not the trend, in a contract year, at a team that badly needs it to be. For Justin Marks, it's about closing the gap to Hendrick, Gibbs, and Penske inside 18 months, because that is the window he has to make, staying the obvious choice for 2 drivers who won't have to. 3 spots remain, and only Preece and Brad Keselowski can still climb in from below the line. Denny Hamlin has already locked the regular season championship and the top seed, 77 clear of Ryan Blaney. And for Rick Hendrick, it's about none of that. He already has his answer, which brings it back to Saturday night, the Coke Zero Sugar 400 at Daytona International Speedway, 7:30 Eastern, the regular season finale. No practice this week. Teams go straight into Busch Light Pole qualifying on Friday at 5. 13 drivers have clinched. 1. And under the chase format NASCAR brought back this year, none of it works the way it used to. Top 16 after Daytona, 1 points reset, 10 races, most points at Homestead Miami takes the title. No elimination rounds. No win and you're in. Which means for Van Gisbergen, there is no safety net anymore. Under the old rules, 2 wins put him in, and the conversation ended in June. Under these rules, they buy him nothing on a superspeedway Saturday night. So does Trackhouse look back at August 2026 as the month it lost its future, or the month it got 15 months of warning and used them? We don't know yet, and that's what makes this so fun. Tell me in the comments, and pick one. Was giving Hendrick the blessing to talk to Zilisch a reasonable read of an impossible situation, or the moment Trackhouse admitted it cannot keep the drivers it develops? I'll see you after Daytona, because Saturday night decides whether Shane van Gisbergen spends the next 10 races racing for a championship or watching one.